Pakistan cricket at its best. 1 minute down, next minute up.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back after a long time to the Generation Gap podcast. I'm Taimur Mir, that's Tanyal Ahmed. और इतना लंबा अरसा बीच में गुजर गया है कि हमने बिल्कुल ही पार्टी बदल रही है. So for the first time we're not doing a non-Pakistan episode which does not involve Pakistan team in any other way. इतनी गंदी परफॉर्मेंस पाकिस्तान टीम ने जो है वो न्यूजीलैंड और इंग्लैंड के खिलाफ की कि बिल्कुल लिटरली दानियाल वाज ऑलरेडी ऑन द कस्प, तो उसको तो उन्होंने पुश ओवर कर दिया गया. And I was disappointed
Waiting
enough to
for
go along. So, इसलिए in this particular episode, we won't be talking necessarily about Pakistan, although I'm sure at some point during the conversation, कोई ना कोई बात तो आ ही जाएगी. But this episode is brought to you by Fake Ashwin. If you want to win, use Fake Ashwin. So, let's get started with the fake Ashwin incident. क्यों किया गया था, which is concerning this topic of our episode, which is the upcoming Border Gavaskar Trophy, which is basically apparently they were using a fake Ashwin to prepare for the Indian pitches and of course for Ashwin's bowling as well. But let's just start off with like a brief sort of recap of the series and its sort of origins. Daniel, if you would enlighten us.
Yeah, interesting thing is that we normally regard this from the 2018 series and the 2021 series. Right? So this has been going on. This rivalry has been going on for 20 years plus, at least. For some reason, like for some reason, the culture of India and the culture of the Australian cricket, like it just doesn't get along. There's just some natural rivalry that just has built up. It's very interesting to see. I think the first example, the Border Gavaskar Trophy, I guess, जो elegance है उसकी prestige जो established हुई थी, that was 2001. That was the Eden Gardens Party series, which I think you remember well, because by that time the Australian cricket की test domination was just off the charts. They had won by that point and I think 16 test matches and 16 matches. The 16 test matches जीत चुके थे and they were calling India the final frontier because they have beaten everyone everywhere. So India, but like Australia hadn't beaten India in India, and I think they still haven't done that to this day. And
I think they did. Did they? And they haven't beaten them in India. I'm not sure. I do know they won the next trophy. Like I think जो अगली trophy उसके फौरन बाद हुई थी वो तो जीते थे. I'm forgetting कि वो इंडिया के अंदर हुई थी या बाहर. But I'm feeling they won the next time they played. I'll have to check that.
That was the 2003 trophy. That was in Australia. So they Australia won that. But that was I think Steve Walker's last series as well, coincidentally. So. But like ultimately, the rivalry established हुई थी कि वो India was a very shit team, and like it was pretty clear that Australia was going to win here. They won the first test match. The second test match, India had a massive fight back, likes of which we still have in test cricket, and उसके बाद they went on to win the
series. I think that is like one of my top favorite test series of all time. I think it was like the Ashes series. I think 2008 Ashes series. It's probably this one as well because it was so improbable at that time, especially having seen the Australian team dominate everywhere. और फिर पहला टेस्ट मैच भी वो जीत गए और फिर इंडिया को भी they literally were on the cusp of winning the second one as well. They needed an absolute miracle to win, and they got a miracle. Several of them, to be honest. Like Harbhajan, this was the making of Harbhajan. In many ways, I remember this was where he became the Turbinator, so to speak. And I think he took a hat trick as well in that. That test series वो मुझे याद पड़ता है कि उसने ली थी. And yeah, it was one of the most competitive, one of the most exciting series and most improbable wins that I've ever seen. So वहाँ से that was genuinely, I mean उससे पहले भी series हो रही थी, but that was like the making of the series, and that was also the time where India was also starting to turn it around. India का sort of resurgence जो है वो उस time पे start हो चुका था international cricket, especially under Ganguly, who had started to inculcate this culture of competitiveness and he had instilled this fighting spirit in the Indian team, जो उसके बाद से sort of continue कर रही थी. वरना उससे पहले like the 90s कि Indian teams will always seem to have very soft underbelly. थोड़ा सा आप उनको pressure में डालते थे, a lot of times they will crumble.
Yeah.
So this was, a pretty big series for the Indians as well, and it was quite interesting, quite an exciting series as well. Overall, for me, even as a non-Indian fan.
I think interesting cheese one that we do not talk about enough is that Australia had another 16 match streak later on. That was under Ricky Ponting. So that was in 2007.
You're right. I forgot about that one, but yes, he did match it.
But
Like Ponting ने भी 16 जीते थे.
yeah, वो भी इंडिया ने तोड़ी थी during the Border Gavaskar Trophy.
अच्छा.
So that has been, it's a very interesting thing कि like वही बात है ना कि they're just like I think they're just magnetic poles or something like that. They're just like एक natural cricketing cultures की ना वो एक rivalry बन गई है. And I think as it went on, we eventually had like I think एक और memory I have of the Border Gavaskar Trophy was जो मैंने देखा था खुद बचपन में. That was the 2011 4-0 whitewash जो home पे किया था ऑस्ट्रेलिया ने, जिसमें माइकल क्लार्क बहुत फॉर्म में था, तो कुछ 300 बनाए थे. That was another. So and I think वो जब कोहली का दौर आया, so कोहली के दौर में I think वो ज़्यादा aggravate हो गई because Australians like to think कि Kohli is like an Australian because apparently they hold a monopoly on aggressiveness. So अगर कोई और aggressiveness दिखाता है तो वो obviously वो Australian ही होगा, और क्या हो सकता है. So
I think it's a fascinating thing. You brought up a point for a bit. Like, I think that's something that's worth exploring. Like the way the two cricket cultures are, like in some ways polar opposites. Like the way they approach the Test cricket specifically. Like India, you have like very spin focused, spin heavy tracks हैं जहाँ पे आपके bounce ball नहीं करती. And Australia, you have the exact opposite. कि आपके seaming bouncy tracks हैं, and you have very different philosophy of playing cricket. You have like India के अंदर ये आपके पास बंदे हैं जो कि बहुत लंबा सा survive करेंगे, खेलेंगे, balls को soak up करेंगे. Not all of them, but India does have a culture of producing these kind of batsmen as well. Which is क्या कह सकते हैं, Australia में it was always different कि आपके batsmen आएंगे, they were aggressive stroke play, and which was a necessity given the kind of pitches they had. कि आपको उस तरह का स्ट्रोक प्ले खेलना पड़ेगा उन पिचेस के ऊपर सर्वाइव करने के लिए, या आपको पता है कि एक आध बॉल ने आपको आउट करना है, सो यू माइट एज वेल गेट सम रन्स बिफोर दैट हैपेंस. फजूल में बस ईटिंग अप बॉल्स इज नॉट रियली गोइंग टू वर्क. तो वही बात है कि इस तरह से एक बिल्कुल डिफरेंट, एक ऑपोजिट किस्म का एक आपका क्रिकेट कल्चर था, इसका सॉर्ट ऑफ क्लैश हो रहा था. एंड surprisingly, India has been the only team that's gotten Australia's goat in some way. क्योंकि बाकी तमाम टीम्स को ऑस्ट्रेलिया ने बहुत अच्छे तरीके से डोमिनेट किया है. एवरीथिंग फ्रॉम इंग्लैंड, पाकिस्तान को तो नाम ही ना लें, पाकिस्तान का तो बहुत ही बुरा रिकॉर्ड के खिलाफ रहा है. लेट्स फॉरगेट दैट. लेकिन इवन लाइक मतलब बाकी टीम्स लाइक साउथ अफ्रीका वगैरह, दे स्पेशली इन ऑस्ट्रेलिया they've struggled quite a bit. और हमेशा मतलब इंडिया ने काफी मतलब उनके खिलाफ सरप्राइजिंगली काफी उन्हें कम्पीट किया है, बहुत दफा उनको हराया भी है, which is what has made this rivalry a lot more interesting compared to especially even the Ashes, जहाँ पे आपको पता है कि इंग्लैंड जो है उसका रिकॉर्ड मतलब फॉर द लॉन्गेस्ट टाइम तो बिल्कुल था ही नहीं. वो हार रहे थे 20 साल तक, फिर उसके बाद जीतना शुरू किया, थोड़ा अरसा वो कंपेरेटिव रहा, लेकिन अब उसके बाद तो इट्स लिटरली अबाउट कि कौन जो है वो होम पे खेल रहा है. इट्स लाइक एन ऑटोमेटिक थिंग कि अगर ऑस्ट्रेलिया होम पे खेलेगा तो उसने जीतना है, और अगर उसके बाद इंग्लैंड होम पे खेलेगा तो प्रॉब्ली इंग्लैंड ने जीत जाना है. और लास्ट टाइम तो इंग्लैंड वाले हार गए थे. दैट वाज स्टिल एटलीस्ट एन एक्साइटिंग एशेज. लेकिन उसमें ये था कि उन्होंने मतलब एक आफ्टर अ लॉन्ग टाइम एक इंटरेस्टिंग किस्म की सीरीज हुई थी, वरना तो मोस्टली दो सीरीज आर क्वाइट बोरिंग. इसमें स्पेशली लास्ट फ्यू इयर्स आई थिंक इट्स बीन अ लॉट मोर fun to watch and lot more exciting cricket is, I think उसमें देखने में मिल रही है compared to like the Ashes. So उस वजह से भी इसमें थोड़ा ज़्यादा interest है, and especially I think जो away series इनकी हैं, because I think India is the only country that I know that competes in Australia. Otherwise बाकी सब तो बहुत बुरे तरीके से हार रहे हैं इस वक्त. जो भी टीमें वहाँ पे जा रही हैं वो white हो गया. South Africa is not like the strongest it's been, but बहुत बुरी उनके साथ हुई है अभी जो वो खेल रहे थे इनके साथ against Australia. So yeah, I mean this series has proven to be quite interesting. Although my opinion is कि इस दफा probably इतनी कुछ interesting नहीं होने वाली. I foresee, I think it's a 4-match series. I think India will at least win 3 of them. I don't know कि whitewash होगा कि नहीं होगा, लेकिन मुझे लग नहीं रहा. ऑनेस्टली मुझे लग नहीं रहा कि इस दफा कोई ऑस्ट्रेलिया का उतना चांस है, डिस्पाइट द फैक्ट दैट दे हैव अ वेरी गुड टीम, बट आई डोंट थिंक दे हैव अ वेरी गुड टीम फॉर द कंडीशंस. और इस तरह से मुझे फीलिंग आ नहीं रही, बिकॉज आई वाज चेकिंग देयर स्टैट्स एज वेल, एंड सैंपल साइज थोड़ा छोटा है, लेकिन मोस्ट ऑफ देयर बॉलर्स हैव ओनली प्लेड लाइक 2 to 4 टेस्ट मैचेस इन इंडिया. और जो इनका फ्रंट लाइन पेस अटैक है, एटलीस्ट उनमें से जितने बंदे थे, हेजलवुड हो गया वगैरह, जितने प्लेयर्स हैं, दे प्ले लाइक 2 to 4 टेस्ट मैचेस इन इंडिया, एंड मोस्ट ऑफ देम हैव एन एवरेज ऑफ अराउंड 30, which is fine, not bad. I think the बुरी नहीं है, मतलब as I would have expected, but it's still not good enough. It's certainly not as good as their actual averages are. इनकी मतलब averages हैं somewhere like 20 and 25 के आसपास हैं. उनकी averages are between 30 and 35 when it comes to India. And bowling में उनके पास Nathan Lyon है, who also has like a 30 plus average in India, which is fine. Again, बुरी नहीं है, लेकिन it's not going to be competitive enough, especially considering कि इंडिया के bowlers की averages वहाँ पे are in the 20s. स्पेशली उनके स्पिनर्स हैं, तो वो उनके लिए बहुत डिसएडवांटेज होगा. और बैटिंग में आई थिंक वो बात है कि दे विल प्रोबब्ली डू फाइन. कोई बात है कि प्रोबब्ली स्मिथ और ख्वाजा ही रन मार रहे होंगे. आई एम नॉट टू श्योर अबाउट द अदर प्लेयर्स जो उनकी बैटिंग लाइनअप है, जो कि इतना ज्यादा को परफॉर्म करेंगे. लाबुशेन मे बी, बट आई डोंट नो कि वो चलेगा इंडिया में. बट yeah, I think they have a good team, but I think in circumstances, India has a better, has a much better team, and a lot of their strengths will be neutralized going into those particular conditions. So, or India ki is waqt batting is again in good form, and with Kohli being back as well and being on form, I think that's going to make a huge difference as well. So yeah, I mean, इतना chance मुझे लग नहीं रहा. I don't see it being that competitive. मुझे लग रहा है कि इंडिया की ऑस्ट्रेलिया वालों की बहुत बेइज्जती होने वाली है अपकमिंग सीरीज में. आई डोंट नो हाउ यू सी इट, बट दैट्स द फीलिंग आई एम गेटिंग.
So I do think कि वो आइंस्टाइन का कोड, इट्स नॉट एक्चुअली आइंस्टाइन का कोड, बट लाइक वो लोग कहते हैं डेफिनेशन ऑफ इंसानिटी वाली बात है ना, कि कीप ट्राइंग द सेम थिंग ओवर एंड ओवर एंड एक्सपेक्टिंग डिफरेंट रिजल्ट्स. I think that applies for like Australia, because they, for the longest time, their approach towards India, even though at least वो कुछ good 20 सालों से हार रहे हैं, वो 20 साल क्या, I think 50 सालों से हार रहे हैं. Their approach is कि वो अटैक ऑस्ट्रेलिया में चल जाता है, या इंग्लैंड में चल जाता है, साउथ अफ्रीका में चल जाता है, इवन पाकिस्तान में चल जाता है, वही अटैक ये ले जाते हैं इंडिया, जो वहाँ पे नहीं चलता. जो कि बड़ी एक अजीब सी थिंकिंग है, बिकॉज आई थिंक by this point India is a leader in global cricket. It is an important series too. And even right now, if you think about it, they cannot get whitewashed in this series. Like, this is an important series for them. They need to win at least one match to qualify for the World Test Championship. जो कि मुझे लग नहीं रहा कि लोग करने वाले, because like वही बात है ना कि like you know that India is gonna win, but the idea is कि ऑस्ट्रेलिया के एक मैच भी जीत सकता है. like वही बात है कि
ये बात है कि will they be able to, क्योंकि I see मुझे लगा 3 तो जीत जाएंगे, लेकिन वो एक मैच की बात है कि maybe they might be able to pull it off in one test match, and that might be enough for them, and that would be actually a good enough result for the Australians, even if they lose like 1 or something.
Yeah,
because they just need one match, right?
yeah.
वो बात I think they did change tactics somewhat, like going यहाँ पाकिस्तान की बात ही हो रही है, but I do remember ये पाकिस्तान के खिलाफ खेलने आए थे. I remember the first series अभी बिल्कुल उनका white wash हुआ था. उसके बाद next series में they actually started playing a bit more conservatively, like उन्होंने balls को रोकना शुरू कर दिया. You know, they started changing their tactics somewhat, at least for Pakistan, and they were a lot more competitive in the next series, even though they lost. लेकिन उसके बाद, and then when they played in Pakistan, they continued playing that particular trend where they were able to stay on the pitch and not play everything aggressively. और चेन्नई से पाकिस्तान की tactics भी shit थे, but you could see the Australians was adapting somewhat to those conditions, at least with Pakistan where it was concerned. I don't know अगर वो वही same चीज इंडिया में करेंगे. If they do it, they will be definitely a lot more competitive. और वो हर बॉल को हिट करने की कोशिश ना करें, और कॉन्स्टेंटली जिस तरह से पहले वो खेलते थे. आई फील लाइक दे हैव मोर टैक्टिकल फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी नाउ. मसला सिर्फ ये है कि माइट नॉट बी इनफ, क्योंकि एक तरफ से एडवांटेज ये था, पाकिस्तान ने बहुत गंदी पिचेस बनाई थी. पाकिस्तान के प्लेयर्स उस लेवल के नहीं है, स्पेशली इन टेस्ट क्रिकेट. इंडिया डजंट हैव दैट प्रॉब्लम. इंडिया की पिचेस विल बी डेफिनेटली अ लॉट टफर. or India के bowlers are a lot more suited to those pitches. They understand those conditions way more than the Pakistani players ever could. तो उस वजह से अगर about advantage उनको भी I don't think they'll be able to have the same advantage in India. They will be more competitive, but they might lose those matches still. I mean, उसके बावजूद जीतने के chances मुझे फिर भी बहुत ज़्यादा लग नहीं रहे इनके. But if it is discussion की कुछ बात करें तो let's just talk about key players. अभी सिचुएशन है कि सपोजिंग चलें या कि ऑस्ट्रेलिया में जो है प्लेयर्स कुछ चांस उनको हो जाता है, they get some chances to win. So which players do you see will play the biggest role? Maybe 2 or 3 players.
So from the bowling end, I do think Pat Cummins कर लेगा because Pat Cummins has that very versatile. He's very flexible. You saw that in Pakistan specifically. He plays in a very, I guess, just kind of Wasim Akram type of style of playing where you're constantly attacking and you're looking for that wicket and you're going for the stumps and all that. Quite like in that sense. So like ऐसे players could be expect कि they end up doing well. I think Mitchell Stark ने बहुत पिटना है यहाँ पे because Mitchell Stark has that workhorse mentality and it is very easy to turn Mitchell Stark into a bowling machine. Given the right conditions, like Pakistan में use a bowling machine. So वो उसके अंदर वो level of flexibility of वो versatile किस्म की कोई वो उसके अंदर skills नहीं है कि वो क्या कहते हैं वो किसी भी conditions में adapt कर ले. At some point, Mitchell starts looking like a ordinary bowler given the right conditions. So Mitchell Stark, I can see. Hazelwood can do decent in the sense के अगर वो एक दो बोट खेला आजकल इंजर्ड बहुत हो रहा है, but Hazelwood can be decent considering कि वो 9 रन पे कराता रहता है, but I think जो उनका Scott Boland है, I think he can do it because वो he's one of I mean since McGrath I haven't seen anyone do better channel bowling than him. वो एक ही spot hit करता रहता है.
I think very successful in India if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. So I think Scott Boland can do well. That is assuming कि Scott Boland could fly. And batting में I do feel like David Warner should have retired this Australian summer. Like उसको पता है कि आगे उसको एक ये बात पता है कि this is going to be his last year maximum. Right? He cannot play beyond this. Test cricket at least. But you also see the fact कि वो क्या कहते हैं उसने relatively अच्छा खेला in the South African series and West Indies series. So it's not like he could have gone on a high. But we know for a fact that David Warner is just not going to do well in India. He doesn't do well away. He's always been, at least in Test cricket, he's always been a home pitch kind of guy. Overall, when he goes away, not that good. I think he should have just retired by now. He should not start playing this season. David Warner having caused the league on this series. Khwaja, I do think Khwaja has the best runs in this series. Khwaja has a very वो जैसे कहते हैं ना थोड़ा open सा stance है उसका, थोड़ा टांगे खोल के खड़ा होता है वो, उससे उसको I think वो थोड़ी ना range मिलती है for spin bowling. So he's very naturally adapted to like spin bowling. I remember उसने UAE में भी बहुत अच्छा खेला था एक दफा जब फंस गया था UAE में आखिरी दिन जब ball is like spinning miles. So he has that ability. Steve Smith Curry, we know he's just one of the best away players Australia has ever had. Labuschagne I feel like can do very well. Labuschagne का scene Labuschagne is very similar to Smith. वो जिस तरह खड़ा होता है, जिस तरह अपने को कैरी करता है, सांस वगैरह similar to Smith. So I don't see him struggling that much. इनके बाद ऐसे मुझे अच्छा लग सकता है. एलेक्स कैरी कोई इतना क्लास का बंदा नहीं है. कैमरन ग्रीन इतना कोई क्लास का नहीं है. ठीक है. So yeah, that's Nathan Lyon ने वैसे अच्छा खेला था पाकिस्तान में. To be fair, nobody expected him to do well in Pakistan, but he did well. He did like I think he averaged around in the 20s in Pakistan recently.
अच्छा, I think नेथन लायन का वही बात है, record is surprisingly decent in Asia overall. I think उसकी bowling
Yeah.
was like 30 something
Yeah.
gap through कर रहा था, which is not that different from his overall average. So उस तरह से there is a certain drop off, but it's not as big as you might expect. तो वो एक है कि yes, these conditions don't exactly suit him to that extent जितना उसको Australian conditions करते हैं, but he is good enough to still get something out of his tracks and still perform. But I think वो बात है कि um, he won't really run through any bowling lineups. He'll be a good support bowler, and he'll need other people around him to pick up wickets. But वो बात है कि he won't be able to do everything by himself, and you need like a front line spinner जो कि मतलब you can run through teams in these conditions, especially India के अंदर, क्योंकि वहाँ पे ज़्यादातर काम ज़्यादा लेग वर्क आपके स्पिनर्स नहीं करना होता है. आपके फास्ट
Yeah.
bowlers are going to be a decent support to them, but you need like two really good frontline bowlers to spinners to kind of run through these batting lineups. But वो मसला है कि उस तरह के कोई है नहीं, और एक कोई लेग स्पिनर लेके आ रहे थे ऑस्ट्रेलिया वाले अपनी टीम में स्क्वाड में. आई नेवर really heard of the guy. उसकी भी आई थिंक 40 something की average है even in Australia. क्या नाम था उसका? Maybe you remember the guy.
स्वेप्सन जो पाकिस्तान भी लाए थे, स्वेप्सन को जो
Jepson,
स्टोन की तरह का.
बिल्कुल हाँ, जेप्सन. अब वो उसका कोई इतनी खास है नहीं. आई थिंक उसकी एवरेज परफॉर्मेंस के मैं कहूँ कि वो बंदा परफॉर्म कर पाएगा इंडिया के अंदर, स्पेशली इंडिया के बैट्समैन हु आर यूज्ड टू मच हाई क्वालिटी ऑफ स्पिन बॉलिंग. तो आई डोंट थिंक उनके खिलाफ ये कुछ कर पाएंगे. बट आई थिंक चांसेस उस तरह से ही हो सकते हैं कि अगर इनके फास्ट बॉलर्स आर एबल टू परफॉर्म वेल व्हाइल द बैटिंग actually is able to exert some pressure कि अगर आप स्मिथ और Labuschagne और ख्वाजा play out of their skins. I think which is possible because they have been extremely consistent in the last year or so. So I think there is a possibility that they'll be able to put enough pressure on India to at least get a result in one test match. But overall chances जो है मुझे इतने लग नहीं रहे कि इनको कोई बहुत ज़्यादा opportunity जो है वो मिलने वाली है. But coming to the Indian side, I think who do you foresee being? I think हमें पता तो है, कुछ idea तो है, लेकिन but who do you foresee being their key players, bowling and batting?
So let's start with batting because that is quite exciting. I don't see Rohit Sharma doing well. First of all, Rohit Sharma का favorite bowler है, but at home for some reason. But
Favorite ball. अच्छा.
that's right. वो I mean Rohit Sharma can do well. वो आजकल at this point of his career, it's more like वो अपनी मर्जी है. कभी खेलता है, कभी नहीं खेलता. We don't know yet. But I think in terms of I think Shubman Gill को शायद खिलाएंगे. Shubman Gill might do
हाँ.
well.
Who's been in amazing form, certainly in the ODIs. Like currently उसका ODI stats are just kind of ridiculous. Like 73 की batting average with like a strike rate of 109 or 110 in ODI.
Yep.
Which is amazing, and he's like 1300 or so runs, so इतने को कम runs भी नहीं है. मैं कहूँगा, you know, it's not like blip or anything like that, but stats in ODIs. So I think worth a shot. इसको खिला के देख लेंगे कि टेस्ट में वो कैसे परफॉर्म करता है.
Yeah. Then there is क्या कहते हैं, Pujara. Pujara is gonna like just Pujara is this man made for like क्या कहते हैं, the Australian bowling attack. Like we saw that in the 2018 series, 2021 series. Like he's just made for this. He's made to annoy Australian bowling attack. He's just for some reason he's really good in that. So Pujara is
even if he doesn't get a lot of runs, like Pujara जिस तरीके से खेलता है ना, the way he just kind of consumes balls and he just blunts attacks, I think that also plays a big role. Even if he doesn't get like, if he gets like 20, 30, 40 runs, for example, तो जितनी ज्यादा balls वो ले रहा होता है ना, खेल रहा होता है, जितना उनको frustrate करता है, I think that plays a big role. And the way, जब for example, you know, he is able to see off the part of the bowling जहाँ पे वो actual ball कुछ move around कर रही होती है, you just probably blunt that part of the innings, and then जब ball move करना छोड़ देगी, the rest of the batsmen can take over and they can just start making runs quickly. So I think that also is a very big role. Yeah, it's less important because इतनी ज़्यादा delivery कभी करेगी ही नहीं, but I think even then he will frustrate them quite a bit.
Interesting thing about Pujara कि उसकी जो myth और जो legend बनी है वो बनी थी in the 2018 sort of series Border Gavaskar की. Like उसमें बड़ा शोर मचा था कि Pujara is as good as Kohli and he's scoring against him और वो bowling खा रहा था और वो hundreds बनाया जा रहा था बार बार. He averaged only 41 in that series. So for a series जो जिसे कहते हैं ना कि एक ने dominate किया है, so you normally expect an average of 60, 70, even 100. But he just averaged 41. He made 4 centuries. But एक बात है ये उसका main जो I think जो उसमें वो bowling खाता है, and he leaves room for someone like Kohli, someone like Shubman Gill, someone like Rohit Sharma to sort of like hit on the other end. So उस sense में वो he's very good. Kohli, I think, is finally gonna break his streak. I just don't see any reason why he wouldn't score now. Even अगर उसकी technique में weakness है, I don't think India में दिखने. Like India में against this bowling that I so there's Kohli, and then I think it would be interesting. I haven't seen the squad. I've seen the squad, but I don't remember. But I don't know who they're picking against for instead of like Rishabh Pant. Rishabh Pant is a huge miss for this. Like Rishabh Pant.
They did pick up. Should have like a replacement wicketkeeper batsman in the team as well. I think उनको रखा तो था. मैं check करके बता सकता. Rahul भी था. There was like 2 players जो उन्होंने रखे थे, जो कि basically as replacements for Rishabh Pant. But obviously, and they were not bad. क्योंकि obviously उनके जो stats में देख रहा था, at least in domestic were around like 40 something की उनकी batting average थी, which is very similar to Pant. But वही बात है कि Pant is tried and tested, and these guys are being given an opportunity right now. मैं बता देता हूँ. There's Srikar Bharat basically and Ishan Kishan, both which are being used as wicketkeeper batsmen. अब I don't know उनमें से किसको खिलाया जाएगा, लेकिन इसमें से है क्योंकि Srikar Bharat also has like an average of around 40 in first class, but not exactly 40, it's like 38 कि almost उसकी average है. And Ishan Kishan I think also has a similar sort of an average. I think his batting average is around like maybe कितना था, it's also around 38. So basically decent replacements I guess, but in the same way problem ये है कि they don't have quite the same kind of impact जो पंत का था, because पंत ना सिर्फ run आपके मारा था, but the pace at which he was scoring was also a big thing. The way he demoralizes the bowling lineup, that's a different kind of an impact. These guys might be able to make runs, but they won't be able to make it the same pace, so have the same kind of impact as well. That's there's going to be a bit of a difference. I think they will have people there to kind of replace the runs that he makes, if not the same impact. So वो definitely a big miss for them. I think bowling end पे तो कोई ऐसा चिंता नहीं है. I think they have a relatively good strength bowling lineup. If I'm not wrong.
Ashwin and Jadeja वो काफी है. I'm sure काफी है. Like they don't need anyone else other than that.
हाँ, फास्ट बॉलिंग साइड में लोग नहीं है. मोहम्मद सिराज and मोहम्मद शमी वगैरह चलें, they're going to be good. But हाँ, it's mostly spin heavy because obviously Umesh Yadav is not going to be that great. वो भी ठीक ही है, but he's not going to be that great either. और बाकी जो है वो you have अक्षय पटेल, you have क्या कहते हैं, रविंद्र जडेजा भी होगा. He's going to be good as well.
This reminds me of this meme that I saw, because like the Indian cricket is a meme game, and that's very good because they shit on their own players and it's amazing. I mean, we shit on our own players too, but they shit on in a nice way. So it's basically कि वो Justin Langer का famous quote है ना कि I've always believed कि if you're selected amongst a billion people, you have to be pretty good. So they cut to like KL and Akshar Patel laughing their ass off.
हाँ, ये बेचारे भी. क्या राहुल तो मतलब बन गया ना बेचारा. मुझे तो वो वक्त याद है जब वो नया आया था, तो he was considered to be the next Kohli, and he was batting like the next Kohli. Like first 2 years of his career, 2 या 3 साल पहले उसकी career के, he was ridiculously बहुत जबरदस्त बैटिंग कर रहा था उस समय. I remember there was a test जो पहली बार मैंने इसको देखा था, there was like a T20 मैच जो वेस्ट इंडीज के खिलाफ हो रहा था, और उसमें आई थिंक वेस्ट इंडीज ने को 200 समथिंग मारा था एंड इंडिया ऑलमोस्ट चेस्ड इट डाउन. आई रिमेंबर 210 मारा था या 220 मारा था और इंडिया नियरली चेस्ड इट डाउन. और शुरू में केएल राहुल आया था और वो ऐसी ऐसी शॉट्स मारा था जो मुझे यकीन नहीं आ रहा था. मैं कह रहा ये कैसे हो रहा है. लिटरली एक बंदे ने, मुझे याद है कि स्टंप्स उसने छोड़ी थी, बॉलर तो यॉर्कर मारा ऑफ सामने, पीछे होकर ही जस्ट डिड दिस और बॉल ऑफ साइड पे छक्का हो गया. मैं कहता ये क्या हुआ. लाइक आई कुड स्केर्सली बिलीव व्हाट ही हैड डन. तो जब वो आया था ही वाज फैंटास्टिक.
Speaking of unbelievable shots, they have added Surya Kumar Yadav in the team, which I feel like is the equivalent of Shahid Afridi in the team in 2006 Test team. कि like वो आएगा, वो एक यूं पीछे मारेगा थर्ड मैन की तरफ, थर्ड मैन पकड़ लेगा, पूरा क्राउड एकदम से खाली हो जाएगा.
उसके बाद और तो वैसे शाहिद अफरीदी की लोग बात करते हैं. शाहिद अफरीदी वाज अ सरप्राइजिंगली गुड टेस्ट ऑलराउंडर. उसका सबसे अच्छा जो कंसिस्टेंट रिकॉर्ड है ना वो टेस्ट में है. और टेस्ट को खेलना, ही हेटेड प्लेइंग टेस्ट. उसको लोग मर के कहते थे कि प्लीज खेल लो या प्लीज खेलो. कहते नहीं मैंने नहीं खेलना. लाइक दैट वाज अ वियर्ड थिंग. ही वाज एक्चुअली अ रियली गुड टेस्ट प्लेयर and his most consistent stats are in test cricket and yet he never liked playing test cricket at all.
No, but he's played a lot of first class cricket for like surprisingly. First class he's played over like 100 matches.
I'm surprised by that. वैसे मेरा ख्याल था कि फर्स्ट क्लास इसने इतना नहीं खेला होगा. He probably would have played a lot more like list cricket and stuff like that. क्यों? तो कभी इसकी शादी भी होगी ना. अभी इसकी वो चली आई हुई थी शाहिद अफरीदी की और शादी की चल रहा था रिसेंटली. वो कहता है कि क्या नया सिस्टम किया कि आपके क्रिकेटर्स में एक्स क्रिकेटर्स की बच्चों के साथ शादी में क्या नहीं करनी शुरू करती. मैंने कहा ये कोई नया यूजेनिक प्रोग्राम जो है वो पाकिस्तान क्रिकेट ने शुरू किया. क्रिकेटर्स के बच्चों के आपस में शादियां करा के नेक्स्ट जनरेशन ऑफ लाइक सुपर क्रिकेटर्स जो है प्रोड्यूस करेंगे.
It's like a Nazi program of like creating
Nazi program.
super cricket.
हाँ, सुपर क्रिकेटर्स प्रोड्यूस करने के लिए हम जो है वो शादी करवा रहे हैं. तो मैं हैरान हुआ था. किसने भी आई थिंक शादाब की शादी जो है वो सकलैन की बेटी से हो रही थी. शाहिद अफरीदी और शाहिद अफरीदी का तो हमें पता किया ऑलरेडी, क्योंकि वो तो मतलब इट वाज जस्ट एक सेकंड ठहरे किधर गया इसका फर्स्ट क्लास क्रिकेट है इसका. हाँ, ही प्लेड 130 फर्स्ट क्लास मैचेस. को थोड़ा बहुत खेला उसने.
Yeah,
he's played a lot of them. Surprising कि वो खेल इतना अरसा मतलब हाँ सरप्राइज कितना लंबा अरसा जो है शायद अफरीदी खेलता रहा. because he did not seem to like that a lot. अरसा खेलता था and he would perform and he would actually pick runs but then he would just skip it. मैंने खेला because उसकी टेस्ट एवरेज इज अराउंड लाइक 36 and a half. उसकी टेस्ट एवरेज थी. bowling average, sorry, batting average. bowling average was around 35. so
yeah,
बात है कि he was a pretty decent test all round. And he made a lot of important things for Pakistan. क्योंकि उस जमाने में it was like a proto Bazball type of cricketer. उस जमाने में आप he would take advantage of the field being in as much as the naturally people. And one of the biggest things that Afridi के साथ उसकी ODI cricket में कि जैसे ही field फैलती थी and he used to just try to play over the top. सर्कल से ऊपर करने की कोशिश करता था which would work well in the first 15 overs. लेकिन उसके बाद फिर जैसे ही आपकी फील्ड टूटी थी couldn't do anything. और उसके बाद फिर मसला इसका टेस्ट में ये था कि टेस्ट में everyone would instinctively try to field his field in. जैसे ही आता था he would just keep hitting over the top. Constantly runs बनाता. अगर edge वगैरह लग भी जाता ऐसी कुछ होती तो it would still land outside the circle and he would be safe. So that actually was an advantage for him at the time. Actually made decent amount of runs.
Yeah, it's surprising how much strength Afridi had. I think he's one of the strongest cricketers ever because like I've seen so many shots जिसमें इसने किया but वो छक्का जरूर जाता. That's just amazing strength. You would just hit the ball.
I remember there was someone who told me when concert I think there's a commentator कहा था मैंने से हाथ मिलाया तो मुझे लगा था मेरा हाथ टूट गया. He just seemed to have such a strong grip. कारिम से कहा था लेकिन just naturally he was one of the strongest and definitely one of the fittest players we've ever seen. Like Ronaldo level की fitness की थी. Because I remember this guy was he played for almost 15 years without ever getting an injury. कंसिस्टेंटली 15 साल ऑलमोस्ट खेला था, जिसके बाद मुझे याद पड़ता है कि अच्छा हाँ एक आध दफा मैंने इंजरी का सुना था, लेकिन 15 साल विदाउट एन इंजरी बंदा खेलता रहा था, which is kind of ridiculous when you think about like competitive top level cricket की बंदा इंजरी कभी ना हो, चाहे स्पिनर ही आप क्यों ना हो, spinners also get injured, but इस तरह का प्लेयर वो था, जितना वो जोर लगाता था हर वक्त हर चीज के साथ, you would expect that he would get injured, but he just never seemed to do that. Physically, yes, he was like quite a specimen. Just कोई बात नहीं, आप जो चक्के हम दो जिक्र करते हैं तो उससे मारे थे. There's no way any other person on the planet could have that ball for a six. Like even in history, cricket की आप उठा लें, मुझे नहीं याद. I don't think I can pick any other player outside of Afridi to hit those two balls or miss time those two balls for sixes. और बाकी बंदे छक्का जरूर मार लेते हैं balls पे, but they would have had to time those balls. No one can just brute force them for six. He's the only one who could have done that, and he put it off. So just as a pure like athletic specimen is something. So yeah, I mean, उस sense में तो उसकी बात की जाती है, but I think we've been distracted by this. So any final thoughts on the trophy? मेरी जो predictions जो है क्या देना चाहेंगे? मेरी prediction तो है कि it's going to be 3-0 India, but what's your prediction for this?
So Australia needs, so this is the interesting part about the series. Australia needs to either draw a test or win a test to qualify for the World Test Championship. If they do that, then it's India versus Australia in England. So that would be an interesting thing to see. So यहाँ तो लग नहीं रहा, like it's very hard unless the Australian team is as good as people say they are, which is, I don't know, it doesn't seem likely, but हो सकता है it's the Australian team, maybe they.
That's very interesting because India don't play as well in England. For some reason their record, the Pakistan जो है ना, but Pakistan relationship to England, Australia की जो है वो इंडिया के साथ है, because Pakistan tends to do better in away matches in England compared to especially Asian teams, and India somehow doesn't dominate at all compared to their record in Australia. So that would be quite fascinating अगर वो इंग्लैंड के अंदर खेलें, क्योंकि I think वो एक definite disadvantage होगा उनके लिए. Or Australia has performed well in England, as we've seen in the recent in the Ashes. उन्होंने यहाँ पे खेली थी, बहुत tough matches with it. So that will actually, I think Australia will have a chance of beating India there. Definitely very very competitive and exciting season वहाँ पे. So in that sense, like अगर वो एक टेस्ट मैच जीत भी जाए, 3-1 भी अगर हो जाए, it wouldn't be a bad thing. I think they will set up a really exciting test series over there. So अगर उस series की खातिर चले, I think I can say 3-1. लेकिन देखते हैं, we'll have to see about that. But yeah, let's see. I think it's start soon. I think it's on 8th starting.
Yeah, it's like exactly 1 week from now. I think Friday को होगा. Next Friday.
So Friday को है, ठीक है. Starting on Friday, हाँ बिल्कुल. See, I'm following it North Lebanon program. तो अब just see the result afterwards. कि चलो जब हो गया, खत्म हो गया, तो मैं उसको अब check करूँगा. But चले अभी उसके ऊपर I'll be keeping an eye on the series to see if any of these predictions actually do come up true or not. So चले, let's conclude it on that and see you all soon.